A few messages before we get started with the video. Firstly, special thanks to Eros Artistry for the amazing rendition of me to use in my thumbnails. A link to their Twitter will be provided in the description, so make sure to check their channel out. Secondly, I have a second channel now. My stream archives will be posted on there instead of my primary channel, so that they're not in the way of my primary channel's uploads. A link to that channel will also be provided in the description. Now, on with the video. Hello everyone, and welcome to What's Been Playing, the show where we put a spotlight on select video games and answer the lifelong question of, what is really worth playing? We might as well start the show off simple. Let's talk Sonic. You all know the story. Iconic video gaming character who gave the Genesis a new killer app and could rival the likes of Nintendo's Mario. That was until his transition to 3D, and we all know how that's been. Whoa guys, let's slow down for a sec. Not only did she just kiss an animal, she also just kissed a corpse. This is what I'm signing myself up for on the internet. Someone's deciding to talk about Sonic on the internet? Whoa! This is completely unheard of! Who would do such a thing? I would.
Quick correction, many people actually talk about Sonic on the internet, and probably much better too, so it's really not all that unique.
Despite the ups and downs, I consider myself a semi-hardcore fan of Sonic, if that makes sense. I enjoy playing the games and learning about the character, but it's not one of my favorite game series of all time or anything. I can say comfortably that I at least enjoy most of the mainline games and some of the spin-offs. For my first mini-marathon, I think it'd be nice to take a look at all the mainline Genesis titles, to see how the Blue Blur got his start, along with Sonic CD. I mean, it's just as much of a mainline game as the others, right?
So without further ado, let's take a look at Sonic's premiere debut on the Sega Genesis. Sonic the Hedgehog.
It was the late 80s. Michael Jackson was all the rage, iconic movies were being released left and right, the main character of the all-time classic, Bedtime for Bonzo, was running the country, and not to mention, Nintendo was dominating the video game scene with the Nintendo Entertainment System. With classics like Super Mario Bros., Legend of Zelda, Metroid, the Mega Man games, and most importantly, town and country circuit designs, Wood and Water Rage, the NES proved to be a titan in the video game industry with a seemingly endless catalog of games to choose from. Competition for Nintendo was there, but in all honesty, could it really be considered competition? Around the same time, the Atari 7800 was also making its rounds, but it's okay, 7800. There's nothing wrong with being irrelevant. I'm just wondering where all the consoles from the Atari 5201 to the 7799 have gone. Around the same time, Sega was also busy supporting their platform, the Sega Master System. Though not as forgettable as the 7800 in my opinion, the Master System just didn't have the same appeal in terms of its games as the NES did. Oh hell yeah! I'd love to play Alex Kidd in Miracle World and pro wrestling compared to Castlevania or Super Mario Bros. 3. The system didn't sell too well in the Americas, except for Brazil, where it had a freaking heyday.
You know what the insane part is? The Master System still has yet to be discontinued in Brazil, meaning that it has some degree of support. Brazil is like the alternate reality where Sega won!
Alright, I'm starting to get a bit sidetracked here. Anyways, the Master System's life in the US wasn't an exciting one, case in point. Then came 1989. Sega was finally ready to truly throw their hat in the ring with the release of the Sega Genesis. Nintendo finally had some legitimate competition on their hands as the Genesis hit the scene. Sega wanted Nintendo to know it with their Genesis Does What Nintendo Don't campaign.
Genesis does. Genesis does. Genesis does. Genesis does. Genesis does.
But one problem still remained. The system didn't really have a mascot to call its own. Sega needed a character that could be as recognizable as Mario, one that can give the Genesis some more personality, and after many different potential designs, a decision was finally made, with shoes inspired by Michael Jackson and Santa Claus of all people, a personality inspired by Bill Clinton's Get It Done attitude, and a blue color palette to go with Sega's logo. The character of Sonic the Hedgehog was born, and with it came Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis, which released on June 23rd, 1991. Sega finally did it. Sonic's snarky attitude and fast-paced gameplay finally gave Nintendo fans a reason to give the Genesis a second glance, and gave the platform a new killer app. The game was praised for its emphasis on speed, detailed environments, and amazing music, which, I'll just get out of the way right now, is absolutely outstanding. These tunes are not only some of the most recognizable video game songs in history, but also began the tradition of Sonic games having some kick-ass tunes. it's not like this game was just left on the Sega Genesis either. This game is playable on countless different platforms and game compilations. There are so many ports of this game that, honestly, it's hard to keep track of them all. Funnily enough, the Genesis, whatever. The predecessor of the Genesis also got a taste of the blue blur when it received a Master System release along with a release on Sega's answer to the Game Boy, the Game Gear. The game is radically different from the original, and I might look at it someday, but for today, we're just looking at the Genesis version.
There's so much more history about Sonic the Hedgehog, but I just wanted to give a brief synopsis about the character in the game. But if you're interested, I would definitely recommend looking up more about the game. The question is, does this game still hold up? Is the game still as revolutionary as it was when it first came out, or are the cracks in the game's design starting to show? That's what I'm here to find out. Brief history lesson aside, let's see what the game has to offer.
The game starts up, you hear that oh so iconic jingle, and then...
You didn't say the magic word.
Let's start with the plot. But there really isn't much of a plot to discuss. To make the power of the 6 Chaos Emeralds his own, the notorious Dr. Robotnik has captured the animal inhabitants of South Island, the setting of the game, and has begun to place them in robots named Badniks, aggressive robots who work under Robotnik's command. As Sonic, it's up to him to save the animals trapped in the Badniks and free them from the capsules located at the end of the third act of each stage to put a stop to Robotnik's shenanigans.
And honestly, that's all the plot that this game has. Take the plot of Super Mario Bros. And replace Mario with Sonic, Bowser with Dr. Robotnik, and Peach with all the animals that you have to save, and it's as simple as that.
It's easier to understand than some of the future games, that's for sure.
This creature will consume all existing timelines, and time itself will collapse and disappear into nothingness.
Alright, last time I'll bring it up, I swear. Anyways, we press start at the title screen and are immediately transported to the lush green hill zone. And I mean, what else can be said about this level? Along with World 1-1 from Mario, Green Hill Zone is easily one of the most recognizable levels in all of gaming. So much so that Sonic Team thinks it's fun to reuse it over and over again. Sonic Team doesn't just beat a dead horse, they curb stomp it. But there's a reason it's so fondly remembered. It's such a tight first level. The music is upbeat and bouncy, the colors are vibrant, and the level design is top notch. That moment when you first start it up and go through that tube before being launched high up in the air, not only does it act as an iconic set piece, but also acts as a way to teach the player the importance of rolling into a ball to pick up speed. This level basically solidified Sonic's place in gaming history because of how tightly designed it is. Fortunately, this isn't exclusive just to Green Hill Zone either. One thing this game does very well is introducing situations that will help either teach or let the players practice utilizing the game's mechanics, which is just great game design in general.
Overall, that was a pretty great start. I wonder what level will be next.
Then comes Marble Zone, the level that takes all of the exciting elements from Green Hill Zone and straps it to the side of a plane, dive bombing toward the center of a volcano. This is my one major problem with this game, the inconsistency of the levels. Levels like Marble Zone and Labyrinth Zone, freaking Labyrinth Zone, bring the game to a screeching halt.
It just makes no sense. Why would they do that? If they wanted to sell this character as a speedy, wisecracking hedgehog, then why the hell would they think that levels like freaking Labyrinth Zone would be a good pick to showcase their speed-based platformer? That would be like if Nintendo made a new Mario game, but every level had a ceiling above you that was so low you couldn't jump. In what dimension in the multiverse would that be a good idea?
There's just so much stopping and waiting. It's even worse in Labyrinth Zone's case because it's a fucking water level. And this game chugs when you're underwater. Not only that, but little shit can't swim, so you know what that means? You're under a time limit until you can either reach the surface or find air bubbles to bring air back into his puny little lungs. Why would they start with a level that demonstrates Sonic's speed so well just to take it away right after? Slowly pushing blocks, riding blocks across pools of lava where you can't do anything, and in Labyrinth Zone, waiting for a conveyor belt of platforms to reach the top. It's just such a frustrating transition because alongside Green Hill Zone, Spring Yard and Starlight Zone are great. Spring Yard to a lesser extent, these levels bring back that sense of speed and rekindled what was started in that first level, especially in Starlight Zone. Just look at this. Now that's what we're talking about! But the problem is, Spring Yard Zone is the third level, while Starlight Zone is the fifth. Marble Zone is the second, and Labyrinth Zone is the fourth. meaning you have to play through those levels to get to the good parts of the game, which is just annoying. This makes the level of enjoyment people can receive from this game just to go all over the place. Inconsistent is a good way to put it. Well, at the very least, each level is brought to life by some amazing visuals for the time, and some outstanding music. Starting with the bright, cheery fields and ancient ruins, the game slowly transitions into more mechanical-based environments, which, along with leading to some cool aesthetics, also emphasizes the human versus technology conflict that the game's story conveys. The environments are also lively and bouncy, which helps the environments pop. It acts as a way to flesh out the game's world, which helps keep players more involved in my opinion. On the technical side though, the game does have its problems. The frame rate can be a huge issue sometimes, like when you take damage for example. Loading all those rings on the screen at once causes the game to drop a sizable amount of frames for a few moments. It's especially worse underwater, where the game looks comparable to a PowerPoint presentation. Sonic games love getting flack for this, but in terms of glitches, I honestly didn't encounter too many. Of course there is the infamous spike glitch. Come on, are you fucking kidding me? Maybe I just lucked out, but those are the only real technical problems I can find wrong with the game. Each level is also given a sense of non-linearity as well, due to the series' tradition of having levels feature multiple branching pathways, which help provide different means of reaching the goal. If you're performing well, you'll gain access to the higher, more speed-based routes, while the lower routes will be full of enemies and obstacles, as sort of a form of punishment for poor playing.
It acts as incentive to want to learn those levels, but may come off as frustrating to newcomers. If you want to go to those higher, more speed-based routes, you gotta get better at the game. It's as simple as that. But I totally understand why some may not consider it good game design. First impressions are a big deal for a lot of people, so when a newcomer is struggling on those difficult, lower paths, it may not want to motivate them to come back, but it could encourage the opposite.
What's nice is that you can switch to the higher and lower paths at almost any time, which also encourages experimentation and exploration. That rhymed. See an incline? If you get some speed, maybe you can use it to gain access to a higher route. It allows the players to get creative with movement and try different things to reach the end quicker. Along the journey, Sonic will come across wings. Wings? I wish. Along the journey, Sonic will come across rings, which basically have some similarities to something like coins from the Mario games, but function a bit differently. While coins can be collected to gain an extra life, rings act as many people have probably said, life insurance for Sonic.
The question is, does anyone know how many shots 5 rings could buy you?
Whenever Sonic takes damage, all of his rings will scatter around him, requiring you to scramble around and pick up as many as you can before they disappear. The incentive is that the more rings you have, the easier it will be to get your extra hit back, because if you get hit with 0 rings, you die. If you finish a stage with more than 50 rings, a giant ring will appear and take you to a special stage where... Whoa, dude. This is like crazy. Look at all the birds and fish and what the fuck is going on? Inside these special stages lie the Chaos Emeralds, the shiny MacGuffins that Dr. Robotnik is seeking to obtain. Unlike the usual 7 Chaos Emeralds that the future games have, this game only has 6. Why? Well, I don't know.
The Chaos Emeralds aren't required to finish the game, but more so act as just an extra collectible. The game still ends with Sonic saving the day. It's just the only difference is Robotnik is seen juggling the Chaos Emeralds at the end, like, oh ho ho, fuck you, Sonic! The one and only Benji, you may be asking, what happens when you do collect all the emeralds? Do you really want to know?
Let's take a look. This is the normal ending.
And this is basically what happens when you collect all the Chaos Emeralds.
That's all there is. So hopefully you enjoy wasting time if you plan to go after them. Aside from the rings and Chaos Emeralds, Sonic will also find monitors that will help him in a number of ways along his journey. He can come across a ring monitor that supplies him with 10 extra rings, a shield monitor that will guarantee protection from damage at least once, aside from getting crushed or falling into a pit that is, power sneakers that will let him run faster for a short period of time, an invincibility monitor that will leave Sonic invulnerable for a brief amount of time, and lastly, an extra life monitor, which, you guessed it, provides Sonic with an extra life.
Like any game from this era, the game had a simple structure and had that arcade-like excitement that games of that time were known for.
Each level is split into 3 acts, which are essentially 3 areas within the level. Think of it as 1-1, 1-2, and 1-3. At the end of the 3rd act, you'll face off against Dr. Robotnik in one of his many contraptions designed to keep Sonic at bay. Wanna guess which fight is the least enjoyable? Yeah, we get it. Moving on. It all culminates in the game's final level, Scrap Brain Zone. Which is fucking bullshit sometimes. It sure feels like a final level, that's for sure. Scrap Brain is full of bottomless pits, objects that crush you, obstacles every which way, and to top it off, its third act is based off a fucking Labyrinth Zone! Are you kidding me? Luckily though, there's a shortcut that you can use to skip practically all of it. Chances are, you will die at least once or twice, unless you're like some Sonic god or something. It heavily relies on beginner's traps, hazards that can usually be dodged in subsequent playthroughs, but will almost always give a first-time player shit. To make it even more stressful, Sonic challenges Robotnik for the last time without any rings. A one-hit challenge, essentially. But once you do land that final hit, it feels good, man. The game isn't that long either. You could beat it in about an hour or two, because that's just how platformers were back then. There's no save feature though, which is annoying. Sonic 2 has that same problem, but we'll get to that game in the future.
Yeah, the game has its problems in terms of structure, but I'm willing to somewhat excuse it. I mean, it was the team's first shot at making a Sonic game, so that meant throwing darts at a dartboard and seeing what stuck. That's just a part of game development. I'm sure raising a child is the same way. Which is why I've coined the term first child syndrome, a case where you have a kid, but scores on Metacritic aren't as good as the children that followed. Let's look here. Runs at a smooth 60 FPS, good graphics, cries too much, and has problems with its pacing. Must be a case of first child syndrome. Going back to the main point though, it isn't a video game without player interaction. So how does Sonic control?
Let's talk about our main character now. As the advertising suggests, the game is a 2D platformer with a heavy emphasis on speed. Like any game in this genre, you can move left, right, and jump. But unlike other platformers, as you move left or right, Sonic will continue to pick up speed, going from a light jog to a full-on sprint as shown by the iconic circular motion he makes with his legs. There's a heavy amount of physics involved with this platformer. You can't make it through those loops without enough speed, or you might have to run farther back to pick up some momentum before running up a ramp. When Sonic is heading down a slope, he can roll into a ball by pressing down, which is when Sonic really begins to pick up momentum, and man, there's nothing more satisfying than rolling on a decline and watching him blaze through parts of the level. If there's one thing this game does very right, it's the exhilaration you get when you do get to those speedy sections. The sense of speed you do get on the ground is pretty satisfying, but I do have a problem with it. Something that ticks me off about the original version of this game is the speed cap on that ground. Wait, what's that sound?
Yeah, could you, explain what a speed cap is?
Casual Sonic fan Frank? On my show? I can't believe it's him!
The one and only.
Of course I'll explain what a speed cap is, buddy. You're one of the coolest guys I know.
You know that I'm just a figment of your, imagination, right?
Wait, what?
I can sob violently in the corner about that fact later. Let's get back to what I was saying. Basically, Sonic will pick up lots of speed while he's rolling, but he doesn't pick up speed when he's running down slopes. Future games would improve on this, but it's really frustrating to go back to this one because of that. In the air, Sonic controls just as well and feels as smooth as his rival's jumping controls felt. Something I really like is that as you fall, you'll gain momentum obviously, and if you hit a badnik or monitor with said momentum, you'll bounce even higher as a result in what's called a badnik bounce. It's super satisfying and adds thrill to aerial movement. Another minor problem I had, which honestly was more of a me thing, was the lack of a spin dash. I found myself fighting muscle memory at least once or twice, trying to do a spin dash, only to remember that it just doesn't exist in this game. Despite the few oddities with Sonic's movement, the levels and the overall smooth control help Sonic's trip towards the climax at Scrap Brain Zone at least feel a little fun, even during those levels. Yeah, it feels a little rough compared to newer games, but it isn't uncomfortable to control.
Overall, it was a pleasant revisit. But we're not entirely done yet. Before we end this review, let's take a quick look at the port of Sonic 1 that was released on mobile devices, because realistically, this is the most definitive way to play the game.
Released in 2013 by Christian Whitehead, who is also responsible for the fabulous ports of Sonic 2, CD, and helped develop Sonic Mania later on, this port is almost a complete remake of the original, adding new characters like Tails and Knuckles, new features like widescreen support, improved control, a new time attack, achievements, a leaderboard, and so much more. This port just improves on the original in almost every way. Yeah, you lose the tactile feedback that comes from using a controller, unless you feel like buying a Bluetooth controller for your phone, but is it really portable at that point? But having widescreen support is such a nice thing to have. I hear people sometimes complain that the older games being in a 4:3 ratio is a problem. Personally, I never had an issue with it, but I know that for many people, that extra field of view is appreciated. It's nice to have the spin dash back, that's for sure. It makes the game much more comfortable to go through, and also just helps the game's flow stay more consistent. It also fixes that speed cap issue I mentioned earlier, so Sonic and Co. will pick up speed naturally as they run down slopes, which makes the game's movement feel more natural. Characters like Tails and Knuckles make those harder levels like Labyrinth Zone a breeze, which, if you can imagine, is pretty nice. Tails' flight straight up makes Labyrinth Zone barely an issue now. It's amazing how many things this port touches up on. Other than that though, it's still very much Sonic the Hedgehog. It fixes a lot of the issues that the original game had, but the game's structural problems still are present, so it doesn't do anything to fix that. But overall, this is definitely how these games were meant to be played. So if you haven't played this game, or Sonic 2 or CD as a matter of fact, you should definitely give these games a look if you're interested. They're both on iOS and Android.
In conclusion, is the game bad? No, I wouldn't say so. I think the better term is that it's aged. The original Sonic the Hedgehog is a game that can still be enjoyed to this day, but has some glaring flaws in its design that just can't be ignored. The game wants to advertise itself as a speed-based platformer, but then shoots itself in the foot by having levels that don't make use of its speed. And going back to this one was much harder because of the improvements to Sonic's control that future games would implement. A spitting image of first game syndrome. But all in all, the game still shines with its presentation, music, and control, which by itself isn't bad. It's a fine experience, but one I wouldn't be clamoring to go back to, and if I were to, it would be with the Christian Whitehead remake. Nonetheless, it helps shoot Sonic into the spotlight, and next time we'll take a look at one of the Blue Blur's most defining releases, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Thank you all for tuning in, and from the bottom of my heart, remember, if you think it's smart to climb into a dryer, then you're really all wet. How the hell do I get in here?
Hey, look at that! I actually finished a video. Wow. Staying true to my word. This part is unscripted, so I'll just say what I need to say before I start messing up. Thank you all for tuning in, of course. I really enjoyed working on this, and I hope to be back soon with the next episode. I was really hoping to want to finish this in June, but because of some setbacks, I had to wait until July to finish it. But nonetheless, I finished it, so hopefully before I leave for college, I can upload another episode and then figure out an upload schedule once school starts. But yeah, I mean, expect to see more episodes in the future now that I got a knack for how to do this. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in. If you want to check out some of my Red Alert projects, you can find them here, or you can find my channel update that I posted recently about what's just been going on here. And yeah, that's all. So I'm gonna go now. Have a good one, and Benji out.